a look today at setting up a block and starting your SketchUp model. So I'm back in the home view here, and I'm going to create a new document, but I'm going to make sure that I create it in metric. So what I'm going to do is click on this little button here and come down to decimal in millimeters. Click on that and it creates our new scene, and we've got it now in millimeters. So that's the standard that architects in Australia work in, so we might as well go for that. And I'm going to start off with drawing in my block. Okay, so I grab my square tool, I start to drag it out, but I don't click a second time. And down here in the bottom right hand corner, you can see it's got my dimensions. As soon as I touch the keyboard to type in a number, so 25,000 would be 25 meters, and 36,000, just for an example block size that you might be using, and I hit return, you can see that it's now created it's created my block to those dimensions. Okay, so we can see that the block at the moment, if we look up on the edge, we can see it's really flat. It doesn't have any actual substance to it. In order to 3D print our houses a little later on, what I'm going to do is grab my extrude tool and I'm going to bring it up 500 millimeters. So I'm going to just have it live. You can see it. I haven't clicked on it a second time. And again, I type in 500 for 500 millimeters, hit return, and that is going to give me an appropriate size block that will print out down to a nice scale that'll work well with our printer. Now, we don't want to weld our house onto the block that we've created to give us some options as far as moving it goes later on. So what I'm going to do is do the triple click. So click 3 times using our arrow key. Remember, the shortcut for the arrow key is the space bar. Once I've got that selected, I can right click and I can go make group. Okay, and I can do it that way. You could also go G for make component. It wouldn't really matter. But what that means now is that this is a component that's locked off, or a group that's locked off. If you want to edit it, the triple click will take you in. You can see how it grays the outside world here. So I can go in and edit my block of land if I need to. And when I want to get out of that, I just click anywhere outside of that frame and I'm back. Okay, so that is looking good so far. Got a nice scale model block, but we want to start putting our house onto our block. Now, a good way to go for that is to look at our views. Now, you can come across here to our scenes, and you can see here that we've got these little images, and they show us our different directions here. So this one is our top view. We've got our angled views. You know, it's pretty easy to work. Okay, so and you can zoom out and you can see the whole block there ready to work on. That's the way I like to go. Now, you might like to think about your how wide that you want the spaces around your building. So you may not want to build right up to the fence on your block, but you might like to leave some room. So I'm going to leave, say, 3,000 on this side, which is quite large, quite spacious, and I'm just going to come down with my pencil line. You can see it's lit up green, and that's just got that ruled off now. If your pencil wants to keep on drawing, you can hit escape and that'll stop that. Okay, and I might put in 3,000 on the other side as well, just to keep those as areas that I could plant trees or have paths or that sort of thing. Okay, so I know where I'm going with this. Now, I want to have some room at the front of my house. I'm going to have, say, 7,000. So this is a large block, so I'm going to allow plenty of room at the front of my block here. Okay, that's good. And then I can start to draw in my house. So I may know from my plan already the dimensions, so I'll come back 7,000. I might come in 3,000. I'm just making up this kind of like house plan as I go along a little bit. I'll come in 7,000. Okay, and I'll come across, and let's assume that this is the floor plan of my house now. So what I can do is I can grab my extrude tool and I can start to raise this shape up. Now if I've got any lines that are intersecting, that are crossing over in my model, then you can delete those before you using this tool, before I start to raise it up. Okay, so try and get a nice clean shape to raise up. So I click on my extrude tool, click here and raise it up. Okay, and just like before, our first story probably wants to be somewhere between 2400 and 3000 millimeters. I'm going to go for 3000, which is quite a generous ceiling height. Okay, but it's actually quite a large structure, so it looks a little flat in this view, but that is fine. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is start to think about building a roof on my structure, and there's a few different ways that you can do that, and it depends on what your structure actually is going to look like. But let's have a look here. So one way that I like to control the shape of my structure and my roof lines is I like to draw it in manually. So I'll often come in here and I might set my roof height as, I might set it at say 2500, and this will be a roof line ridge here, and I'll just start to draw in the shape of the roof. Now you might want to think about how it looks from different directions. Often if you've got a roof line, you might angle it in, so you can see the angles from the road. So we tend not to have the roof line like sloping towards the road, which is about what I'm sort of looking at doing there. So let's see what we can do that's a little bit more interesting. So I might rule across here. I might come up again to 500. Oops. Let's make sure that's going vertical. 2500 to be quite tall. Okay, and we'll have a slope up here, and then I can start to draw my roof shapes in like this. Okay, and we can start to come across. I'm just trying to keep this like a fairly complicated shape, just so you can see how you might go about making it. Okay, so I've come down like this. That's good. So we've got some roof shape there coming up. Then we've got our building. That's good. And we might just see, I wonder how big that is there. We can see that that's 3000. So we might come in 3000 on this side. 300. Oops. 3000. Okay, and I'll come up. Now I'll light it up blue, hold my shift, and then touch over on this point, and that gives me that auto inferencing that allows me to get dimensions from other places. That's good. I can draw down there, along here, join that up to there, and you can see it starts filling in the roof components as I go along. So anytime that you fill in a shape, SketchUp always fills in the middle of it. Okay, so and we can also start to create some more complexity in here. So I'm going to erase these. That's good. And then I might start to bring out this structure a little bit and give me some overhang. So I might bring that out 300 for starters. Oops, 3000 is a bit excessive. 300. Yep. And I can bring this one out again the same. I might bring this out like 3 meters though, to give me a covered in area. Okay, so something a little more like this. Okay, I'm not really that sold on the design of my roof shape, but we can get it looking a bit better as we start to extend out our roof shape. So I might just rule this through here, and I might start to bring this out like it's a carport type of situation a little bit more. Okay, so we can start to break the forms up into a little bit more interesting kind of shapes. Okay, but it is an extremely heavy heavy roof line I've got going there. But the next thing that you might like to do is to start to think about how you're going to do your windows in your house. So a good way to go, if you is usually the windows will kind of like start at a similar height. So I might zoom in here and I might use my tape measure tool, which I get from down here. So it's supposed to look like a builder's tape measure, and I might rule up, and I might come up, say, 700. And once I'm at that point, I can then start to come along, and you can see that my tape measure has got like a plus sign beside it, and that means it's going to add in a guide. And then I can again come off that guide, and I can come around in this direction. It's lit up, and that gives me, you can see now I've got some guides to work with, and I might come up then a little bit more, so I might come up 1800, and then once I've got that, bring my guide along again, and that'll start to give me some shape for my windows. And you can take these right around the building. Now, of course, you can have windows that break outside of this shape, but these guidelines can help you if you're having repeating windows. That can really help you. Okay, so I might decide that the inset for my windows might be in 1000. So 1 meter in, and then I can grab my square tool and I can start to drag out a window. So it's 1800 by 1800 at the moment, which is square, and I can go along and I can set my windows to whatever size I require as I go along. So that makes it nice and easy. I'll get rid of that little bit of extra line there that I threw in. I don't need that. And don't forget, with your windows you can then start to break them up into smaller sections. So I'm going to grab my offset tool, making sure that I select the actual inside of the window turns blue, and then I might inset this 50 mil. So I'll type in 50, that's good, and I can come along to my next one and double click, and it'll repeat that process. So that's good to have that going on. If you want to get more technical with our windows, we can put in the window openings. So I'm just going to go through and just cut these in, that's good, and then I might use this offset tool a second time to inset those panels. Sometimes you need to actually just click on one and then click back, so like that. Now I'm going to set that in 50, yep, and then I'm going to select the next panel. Oops, double click didn't work in that case, so I better bring it in manually. Again, 50, just like that, and then I'm going to come across to this next one, inset 50, whoops, inset 50, and then come across to the next one, and I'll inset that 50 mil, just like that. Okay, so that gives us some structure for our windows that we can work with, and then we can start to just add we can pull those out a touch and push them in. I'll show you that maneuver. So I'll use my extrude and I'll just zoom in plenty on my window, and what I'm going to do is select that surround. Sometimes you've got to zoom right in to make this work. There we go. Okay, so you can see I've selected that outside frame. It's now nice and dotted, so I could pull that out of the building a little bit. So just a touch, and then I've got these windows on the inside. I might grab those ones and I might push them just back in a little bit. Okay, so it just gives us our windows a little bit of depth, so they just look a little bit better. Whoa. There we go, and I'll just go across and touch that other face, and that gives me my window just like that. Okay, so that's good. So I can start to cut my windows, and then when you 3D print them, your windows will look a little bit more finished, and they'll have a little bit more complexity. You can obviously add materials to that. So I've got our material finder here. I could just really quickly just throw a glass onto this, and you can see that it's a blue glass, but I can see into the building. And so later on you'll be able to mess around with the colors and get things happening a little bit more. But I think that will give you the basis of being able to build your structure, get it to scale, and start to build something that you can work with as far as 3D modeling goes. And then later on we'll come back in and we can set up the interiors, and then you'll be able to do some interesting renders with your work as well. Okay, so thanks for your time, and I'll stop things there.